Hello, everyone, and welcome to Backchat. Welcome to Jaureguiberry, your yoga for scoliosis community. I can see some of you are waiting already. Some of you are joining us already. I can see Daniel is here. So let us know. Obviously, feel free to use the chat to introduce yourself, to let us know where you are from, as always. And those of you who are new, my name is Christine Jaureguiberry, and I'm a yoga teacher, and I specialize in teaching yoga for those with scoliosis. And we're doing this sort of chat every week, and sometimes I have a specific topic that I chat about. Sometimes I have an interview guest as well. And today, before I bring her on, today I've got a lovely guest, and she is one of my teachers, and I'm sure you will really enjoy teaching her. You will enjoy listening to her as well and learning from her as well. Hi, Laura is saying hi, Christine. Today's class was so nice. Thanks. Thank you so much, Laura. That's lovely to hear. And Liz is saying hello as well. Good to see and hear you, Christine. Yes. Good. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in and for supporting us, obviously, as always. Those of you who are not a Shine member, so just little announcement. I've got a sale on until Sunday, the 13th of March. So you've got another 4 days if you want to sign up for the Shine Yoga for Scoliosis membership at half price for your first month. And you will find the description. You will find the link in the description below. You'll find the direct link with the discount code that you could use as well. So hope to see some of you in the Shine membership very soon. And we've got a weekly practice every Wednesday on Zoom, so we can all see each other, which is great. And then we've got some guest workshops as well. And there's a full library of all the guest workshops in the past. And we had some strength training. We had a workshop about osteoporosis. And then Adelene, my teacher, is also going to teach a workshop very soon. So I'm sure she's going to tell us all about this as well. So let me bring her on right now. So there she is. So welcome, Adelene. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
And tell us where you are at the moment.
I'm excited to meet your community.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, there's a tiny little bit of a delay, so I try not to talk over you. But yeah, tell us a little bit where you are right now, and maybe give us a little introduction, because you've been on this Backchat a couple of times already. But maybe for those of you who are new, what is it that you do and who do you do it for?
Yeah. I was born in Malaysia. I am based in London now. So I live in London. I teach in London, mostly Europe. But at the moment, I'm visiting my parents. So I'm in Malaysia again. So it's late in Malaysia right now. But I'm really excited to be on this chat with you, because I see all the work that this community has put together and come together and sharing so much. So I'm really excited to be invited to speak and chat here. Me, I come to my practice some 20 odd years ago because of my scoliosis. So I live with scoliosis, for those of you who are not so familiar with my history, my background. And I haven't got a fusion, but I nearly had one. I nearly was gonna have the operation, the surgery for the Harrington rod. But I did manage to help myself lots with yoga, with my practice. And that's what the topic today we're going to be discussing, like what sort of style or approach or yoga that has been most helpful. At least I can speak from my experience and for quite a few of my students, many of my students' experience about what has worked for different people, different personality, different people, students. Yeah. What else? Is there anything else that you would like me to add?
Yeah, I think that's great, and I think it will be such a relevant topic, obviously, for a lot of people. And I always get asked this question, you know, which style or which type of yoga is best, and what should I be doing? Because I think a lot of people are scared, or they don't want to do, obviously, anything that hurts them at the end of the day, which is a very sensible thing to think. And so it might be this, I don't want to do anything that hurts me, but also wanting to know what is maybe the best to work with my scoliosis.
Yeah, I have a special interest in scoliosis because of my personal experience, obviously. But I have to already say at the beginning that over the years, what has really also helped me, it's restorative yoga. And until I then have a more steady, stable meditation practice, that really shifted my relationship with the condition. So yeah, I'll be sharing some of these later. Yeah.
Good. So how do you want to start? What do you think would be a good way for us to to dive into this topic?
The first thing that I would like to start is for the fact that those of you who are tuning in right now, listening to this, whether it's live or recording, I would love to have all of us acknowledge that we are fortunate to have yoga in our lives, that you have landed yourself here, that you have met yoga and yoga is supporting you, and you have chosen it to be part of your life and living. So that I'd like to namaste to all the lots of teachers that has passed on these teachings to us today, that we have it. And I'd like to start with sharing with you, some of you might already know my history, but I'd like to share a little bit about the styles of yoga that I've probably been have explored, and then take it from there. If there's any questions that's coming in from the chat, feel free to pop it in also as and when, and I'm sure Christine will catch it for me.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Everyone, feel free to use the chat and maybe tell us which style of yoga you are maybe familiar with, or maybe want to know more about.
Yeah, definitely. That would be most helpful, so that I could also include that into the discussion and all. So when I first started my journey, I don't know nothing from like what style of yoga. I just dropped myself into a class, which happened to be, I think, a vinyasa class, or at least an ashtanga class, rather fast-paced, flow, power-ish class. But at that time, my body felt good, just moving, because I've really been sedentary and not been active at all, because I'm just bracing myself most of the time from pain, from afraid to hurt myself, my scoliosis. I was already experiencing lots of pain and sciatica at that point, which was only in my late teens, when I was like in my early 20s. And it felt good for a while. For a couple of months, it felt good because I started moving my body. But then eventually, it almost feels like it felt good, and then it just tapered off, where I don't see very much improvement in terms of how I could potentially manage my pain. And then I managed to find a teacher locally. At that time, I was still in Malaysia, who teaches Hatha yoga, just general Hatha yoga. There's no name, no style, no nothing. And he teach in a way that it's more traditional. He's one that hasn't got any like kind of certificate from Yoga Alliance or anything, but from grandfather to father to him. And he just worked with me more as a one-to-one, very traditional way of approaching my condition. And that worked well. And very soon I decided that I'm going to take it a little bit serious, and I start venturing and go a little bit of yoga shopping. So I call it yoga shopping because literally there's just so many out there, and I just drop myself into shadow yoga, yin yoga. I've tried Jaureguiberry as well for quite a number of years, and Iyengar yoga. So some of you might be familiar with some of the names that I mentioned. All of them has, in a way, contributed to my practice today. And I find that what is most powerful is when I'm able to empower and reclaim myself agency to choose. Because initially, I was at a point where I wasn't sure of what would work for me, and therefore I needed more guidance and instructions. So just tell me where to put my right foot and tell me where I should stretch in my left lumbar. And soon after, those instructions no longer fit what I would need for my body, because the body continued to evolve, the body continued to change. Every practice we do on the mat, the body is shifting, is changing. It's organic. It's responding from moment to moment. And therefore, I needed something that it's an evolving practice. And that's also very early on. I was lucky enough to meet my teacher at that time, 2022 or so. It was really early. Donna Farhi, some of you probably know, she wrote quite a few books if you're in the yoga community. And she teaches in a way that it's not style specific. She herself has lots of Iyengar training before, and also other somatic work and other approaches to movement. She used to be a dancer as well. And she has taught me how to practice rather than what to practice. And that's where I am able to adapt all those different styles, because I have the vocabulary. So I just call those asana and sequences just vocabulary. I'm able to use those vocabulary and make up my own paragraphs and sentences and paragraphs to adapt to my flavor and how it works for my body. So I'm talking about a pedagogy of learning and teaching, ultimately, to be able to continue to evolve with me as my body changes. Because the curvature, the pain, the location of the pain or discomfort or tension is changing. So it can't be the same, possibly it can't be the same pose for the rest of my life, or the same intensity for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And yes, I mean, very often people have this question, you know, what are the 3 poses I should be doing? And you know, we're all trying to simplify it, of course, and we're all looking for that easy answer at the end of the day. And I mean, certainly when I'm looking back at, you know, my yoga journey, and when I started practicing with you, I realize how much it has changed, and very, very similar to what you're saying. You know, in my 20s, I just needed to move, really. I just had a desk job, and it was important for me to actually just get off my chair and move about, and and you know, feel all the power and the flow and yes. Oh, I think we broke up for a moment, but hopefully we're back.
Yeah, I'm back.
Let's see.
Oh, you're back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Let's
I hear
send
you.
some vibes to the internet gods. Please stay with us.
Yeah, I hear you, and I do hear students over the years asking about, like, okay, just give me 3 poses that would work for me. And I step back and I was thinking to myself, like, how can I give you 3 poses? I'm not going to give the student 3 poses. That's just doesn't serve the student, and I wouldn't do that. But over the years, I've learned to understand that when someone's asking for those 3 poses, they probably at that moment lack confidence and just simply needed those guidance to just tell me what to do first. And then until I have some guide ropes that I'm able to make a choice. At the very beginning, I just don't even know where to start. So where should I start? Tree pose, or is it sun salutation, or is it trikonasana? So often how I would approach that student would be, I would always say that this right now, based on what we have discussed, or based on the history that I know, I've seen some of some assessment and know their movements. These will be the 3 poses that I would offer you, but know that it will change. Know that this might no longer, or even the intensity of it, or the range of movement within it, or the length of time you stay in the pose will change. It could be tomorrow, it could be next week, it could be 3 months later, and we will have to reevaluate. So having those little bit of guide ropes for them to build confidence, because one of the biggest things I feel with working with scoliosis is the fear of hurting, the fear of the curvature might get worse. I don't know what to do. I'm not even sure if the teacher is experienced enough to tell me what to do. So there's a lot of hesitancy and about how to approach the body, and therefore having a continuous support with someone that you can work with who understand would be most helpful for you to develop your practice rather than just get a secret recipe for S-curve scoliosis and all. Yeah.
So what would you say? If somebody is relatively new to yoga, maybe only has kind of had a couple of yoga sessions, or doesn't know quite, and is maybe overwhelmed with the choice of, like, if you, especially now that we can go to yoga studios again, and or have maybe embraced the online yoga studios, and we see all these names of the different types and the styles of yoga. What would your advice be to someone who's just kind of doesn't really know where to get started and wants to make sure they're doing something that is good for their bodies and for their scoliosis?
Yeah, I'd like to take this opportunity maybe to invite you and people who join us live right now to take maybe a minute or 2 for reflective self-reflection and question, if that's okay. And those who are joining us, if you could sit comfortably or even lie down comfortably, and take a moment of pause right now with eyes open or closed. You don't need to be staring at the screen. I won't be demonstrating anything. And I would like to just offer a moment of pause and space and silence right now for you to be with yourself, to sit with yourself. So dropping all the ideas and performances that you need to or expect yourself to do. Allowing the most comfortable, easy breath, no effort. And a question to internalize for yourself is, why did you come to yoga, or how did you come to yoga? Is there something you want desire? What is it, the word yoga, in your idea that promises you, that continue to draw you back to this practice? And in other words, you can say that that's an intention. So what's your intention about practicing yoga? And you can be totally honest, because no one needs to know unless you decide to share. And slowly blink your eyes open when you're ready. Yeah. So anything come up for you, Christine, or maybe from others also? I'd love to.
Yes, and guys, I do encourage you to share, of course, if you're willing to share what maybe came up for me, for you. And yeah, for me it was again, I really tried to look at it, what is it right now for me, because it's a completely different story for me, why I came to yoga however many years ago it is now, 20 years ago or so. But what is it that kind of makes me come back to it? And there was one thing, and I'm going to have to re-listen to it, what you said again. But I think it was something like what it is about the idea of yoga that makes you come back to it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think for me, it's certainly that it's so much more than movement practice, because I sometimes ask myself, what is the difference between doing my physio exercises or doing yoga, right? And so for me personally, it's a time to kind of come back to myself, to reconnect, especially because I've got small children, and my whole focus is outwards. I'm teaching yoga, so I'm on here, obviously, so I'm sharing a lot, I'm giving out a lot, so that's my opportunity to come back to me and just to kind of to nurture myself, and to bring everything together. I don't know if that makes sense.
Integration,
yes, that's a nice word. Yeah. And sometimes it might be that I have a specific, that my back is hurting or my shoulders are aching, or it might be something very specific. With the restorative practice, sometimes it's now also when I these warning signs, when, for example, for me, when I wake up in the morning and I feel exhausted already, that's for me a warning sign. That means, I'm going to have to get to my restorative practice probably because there is something that is not quite right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you for sharing that, Christine. Anyone has shared anything yet?
I
before I
haven't got
continue?
anything, but there is a little bit of a delay, so it takes a little bit of time. I've just got
Okay.
a lot of hellos here. Hello from Canada and hello from the US. So people are obviously, maybe they are still thinking about this question.
Yeah.
We've got
I
Laura
could
here.
offer
Sorry.
some prompt. Yeah.
So Laura is saying, for me, it was a different approach to scoliosis that included other types of movement than gym or therapeutic exercises. So that's why she came to yoga, I guess, as a different alternative to managing scoliosis. That's what I read from this. And then she's saying holistic.
Holistic. Yeah. 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 Thank you, Laura. Yeah. I mean, some might, when I was reflecting on this, I asked this question to myself every so often. It's not something that I only asked myself like 10 years ago, but like every so often now, today. And sometimes I find that the first word that comes up could be pain management. It could literally be managing some tension around my back. That's why I need to get onto my yoga mat. Or is it self-confidence? Or is it an aesthetic appearance of it? Ease and comfort in the mind and body. I'm just throwing out a few things that I've also heard some of my students shared with me. Or is it learning more about yourself in order to be able to practice with scoliosis, living with scoliosis? And some quite honestly would share with me that they feel that living with scoliosis, there's some disability, there's some dysfunction in terms of what they would like to do in their life. Being a mother or certain job that they do requires certain physical things that they literally just needed to address. So then their approach or intention that they would come to yoga would be quite specific to what they would need to fulfill. So when you answer yourself that question, or that to have that intention of why are you here for, that intention could also change from day to day. Today it could literally be that achy shoulder, but another day would just be, I just need to feel a little bit more assured, confidence in how I choose my practice, how I modify my trikonasana. And that self-confidence might not be a sequence of like a secret recipe sequence that somebody else guru could offer you. But there's another way of approaching it in terms of developing self-confidence, which is through the pedagogy, which I'm happy to share and speak a little bit more in a moment. But really, in terms of going back to what we're discussing today, which is which style of yoga would work, if at the moment you're feeling that, okay, I don't know where to start, I just need to get on a mat, someone has to tell me what to do, then do that. There are, I would say, even like lots of Pilates instructors and teachers are able to give you a set like posture or sequence to build strength, if that is helpful for you to have a set sequence to follow. And of course, you can also get that from a yoga teacher, your yoga teacher, that, okay, this will be the few poses that you would repeat for the next month before we review it, if that's what you need as in a little bit more firm guide. But within it, I would also like to have space for growth, because eventually, if someone were to practice only the same sequence because I was told to practice that sequence, that would eventually take my self-confidence away, because I'm not able to choose. I was told to do this, and that dependency would grow. That unless I'm in the presence of this person or this therapist or this teacher, that I'm not able to survive or to continue my practice from there on. So the ultimate, if I were to work with someone, the ultimate eventually really is, yes, initially giving some guide ropes until the person feels confident, or maybe some students are already, they come in and they already know that they are determined, they wanted to do this. I just need to give them a little bit of like, okay, let's enhance your sensitivity and body awareness, your proprioception, addressing your proprioception, and also how you sense and feel the body. That's more from a somatic perspective. And that would help you navigate how to practice from there on.
So do you think that there is kind of a personality that maybe suits a particular style of yoga? Does in your experience is a style of yoga linked to a specific teaching method, or is this like completely individual and really just depends on the yoga teacher?
I think naturally students would already gravitate towards the style of yoga that the learning style that works for them. I would say, if right now, rather than asking which style of yoga is best out there that's available for scoliosis specifically, like, okay, I have scoliosis, I just need to find a style of yoga, or even just an approach, whether it's Groff method or Feldenkrais, many different approach. Maybe the question could be, which style of yoga approach best match your appetite for learning and practice right now? So initially, just like I'm thinking how a toddler, a young child would learn, initially they needed, actually not true, even a young child have just different personality about like, okay, don't tell me what to do, I'm just going to explore myself. Or those who are like, okay, just waiting for instructions before they could actually approach. So it really depends on how you how you feel about your practice right now. And my job as a yoga teacher, trainer, is to facilitate and meet my students where they are and take them eventually into a place where they are self-empowered. They could actually make that choice themselves, because ultimately I know from myself, from my experience and many, is that until, that's the secret recipe actually, until a person is able to take the yoga and own it themselves and be able to evolve with it from an inquiry-based practice, then the healing begins. The actual healing of scoliosis begins. So whether you start off with Ashtanga, or whether you start off with hot yoga or Hatha or Yin, eventually to be able to find space for yourself to make an informed choice yourself, rather than just taking instructions, and also questioning, have that curiosity to keep asking questions when you're on the mat, to take you to evolve with the practice.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I think you just you know very quickly if you are suited to a particular style, right? That's what I have experienced, definitely. And I have been in yoga classes and types of yoga where if it doesn't make me feel good, not on a physical level, but more of that I feel like I'm doing something wrong all the time, or it doesn't make me feel good, then I'm out of there, right? Then I'm just not up for it. So if somebody approaches it with you do this or you do nothing, then for me that's already like, no, I don't want to be here. But other people will really like this approach, right? They would really enjoy.
I think initially, often initially, especially living with scoliosis, there is already some uncertainty about what could happen in a year's time, in 10 years' time, what's going to happen to me. There's certain uncertainty about how the body is going to evolve if I do this or this practice or this particular movement. And therefore, often the first instance, a new student would come to me, they would crave and ask for a very specific practice or sequence or what to do. And I would give that, but I'll give like just enough for them to feel that, okay, I have some structure. And having that structure, within that structure, I would ask them, like, notice how you feel, and continue to probe for body awareness, because ultimately once they have the body awareness, then they are able to begin to trust themselves a little bit more in order to choose the next step, which then I might then offer them, okay, you try this, but I'm not gonna tell you like 10 breaths, or is it 2 breaths, or how long you're gonna stay in the pose. It really depends on, I'll educate them in terms of how to read sensation in the body, and the body can tell you how long you need to stay in the pose. Then gradually, with that confidence, then they're able to grow with their practice and truly begin their healing. Otherwise, it's just a photocopying of someone else's practice, which works for that person, which works for that person's experience, that person's scoliosis, or that teacher.
So tell us a little bit more. You mentioned it a couple of times already, the somatic approach, and you've obviously you are going to teach a workshop for my community, obviously, which is called, I'm just looking at the title, but it's called the soft spine, a somatic approach. So I was wondering if you can, and we've had James Knight here on the podcast as well, who told us about, he calls it gentle somatic yoga. So maybe for those who are not so familiar with that term, or with that, would you call that a style of yoga or a type of yoga?
To me, it's just a vocabulary that describes approaching the practice from the body, the intelligence of the body. So rather than taking the vocabulary in terms of, say, move your right foot or Trikonasana from the word and then translate that into a pose, that you are moving, you are approaching the practice from the body sensation and then developing the pose, which may or may not have a name, which may be quite formless sometimes. It could be, I would call that an expression, a variation of the same pose, because that's how the energetic body, respecting the energetic body, how it's expressing itself in that moment, and it will continue to evolve. So somatic to me is how I approach it and teach it. Is often I throw out a theme. So for example, this workshop that I call it the soft spine, where I'll be introducing the gut tube as a support for the bony skeletal spine itself, because it's just lying the anterior of the spine. From a more organic way of accessing, so we are able to embody, sense, and feel the presence of it before we think about which pose to do with that theme. So embodying the gut tube, embodying its location, maybe its size, and its orientation and its texture, and then from there able to express movement with the gut tube, rather than thinking about the bony skeletal spine, just being able to express movement from the gut tube, and then maybe making a form or shape that might have a Sanskrit name to it, and notice how that might change the experience of that same pose.
So it's kind of, it sounds to me like practicing from the inside out rather than from the outside in.
Very much so. It's why somatic approach. It's I approach it this way, and I find it really intelligent with the body, because that has a more sustainable repatterning process when it's being embodied at a cellular level that way. That the longevity of that repatterning would stick and stay, because it's not from here, but it's already are happening in the body first before it gets translated into the mind. Oh yeah, this is Paschimottanasana. Oh yeah, this is. So that's the book, the word that eventually comes up to like how we cognitize and expresses it. But of course, as I said, interoception also depends on someone's ability to have that body awareness and that sensitivity to be able to sense and feel. So that is a little process of being able to trust a little bit more of the body is able to offer you those information. And I was saying about the longevity, there's one point that I wanted to share with you earlier. I was just thinking, yes, about proprioception and the vestibular being, if we want a more, lack of a better word, permanent or longer term effect or result or repatterning of the scoliosis rather than an invasive one, which a surgery could do it within like 12 hours, 8 hours, that it would organically, gradually shift and change in terms of its support, then it would require us to recalibrate our internal navigation system, which is through proprioception and through the vestibular, because it informs us where we are in space. And we know that with scoliosis, sometimes that is slightly skewed and therefore straining some bits of our back or muscles in order to be upright or to perform certain movements. So once I'm able to recalibrate that to a more accurate respond to gravity and through movements, then I'm able to make my choice to choose what sequence, which pose, or even whatever activity that I would love to engage in beyond off my yoga mat.
Yes, yeah, and that's all. It sounds great when you talk about it and when you explain it, but I think it's this can be a process of a long time, right? A lot of years. It's not something, well, maybe for some people this happens overnight, but I think sometimes this can take a long time, really.
I would love to have a quick experiment if we have 2 minutes. If you have access to a wall, I could demonstrate and you can immediately sense and feel what I meant by proprioception and how to sense and feel rather than just doing the pose. So can I? Yeah?
Yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
I'll just step onto my mat. Yeah. Okay. So I could instruct the student to simply come into all fours and extend one leg. This is quite a typical movement that we could do. You're not able to see the walls. I have to turn a little bit so you could see the wall. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So a student could just extend their legs, but without pressure, because proprioception goes through the bones. Yeah. So if I have the students then press their feet against the wall, then their body, without even telling them what's happening in here, the body is already experiencing force and pressure coming through the bones, through the joints, to inform the rest of the body how to reorganize in order to be in this shape. So just doing that like half a minute, 1 minute right now, and tell me what you feel. Maybe the audience would like to say something.
Yes, I would do it, but I can't. I'm in my office here.
Okay, the camera. Yeah,
and I would disconnect everything to do it. But yes, if you are watching this, obviously you might want to try this out. And I love the use of the wall and the floor, as you say, to give that feedback, right, and to understand where we are in space, because and I'm sure everyone knows what I'm talking about, but when you're just standing and somebody tells you, you're not quite straight, and you should be doing this, you should be doing this, and then correcting you in a way, and you feel like, no, then now I'm completely lopsided. So this is what,
and yeah. And therefore, how I would educate, it's to educate so that the student is able to increase their sensitivity, their proprioception, and how they could recalibrate themselves in response to gravity and pressure around, so that that could eventually evolve from day to day. Like the same pose day to day is going to continue to evolve and change and feel different. And you know, I have the online modules, and one whole module is on just proprioception, where we spend like the whole 3 hours on just proprioception, and then the whole 3 hours on setting an intention and recalibrating our relationship with ourselves and how to move forward, and support ourselves to move forward.
Laura is saying, I felt she did the pose. I felt as if my whole body was much more involved in the pose.
Yeah, I mean, nothing more needs to be said apart from just guiding the students to be able to experience that themselves. That's the alignment, I call it. That's the alignment of the pose. The alignment is where you can feel the force coming through the whole body, through the spine, to the neck and head, rather than just the muscles are helpful. Actually, I'll be explaining a lot more about this during the workshop, about like what's the difference between working with the muscles and then working with bones in order to feel the proprioception of it. And of course, there's the longer program where if you want to go deeper, then that's the online program. Did I share already with you the online program dates, Christine?
No, you haven't. Yes, do tell us. So Liz is just saying your upcoming workshop sounds intriguing. I've worked through James Knight's practices and Taro Iwamoto's routine.
Iwamoto routine.
You're better at this. They are very
Japanese,
helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Work with that. If you find it really helpful, then that might be what you can work with for a while until you feel like, oh, okay, I would like something different or would inspire you.
So Lauren obviously did the pose and found it quite different from one side to the other, which is also always interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's how the body it's going to register and learn and start to recalibrate. So how could you approach it in a way that you feel more centered, integrated as a whole piece? So rather than just thinking about the glutes that's working, rather than thinking about your hamstring that's contracting because you're lifting the leg and extending the leg, could you feel the whole body as one unit, right up to your shoulders, neck, and head on both sides? So that's how the body then gradually repattern. Right? Yeah, I'll share with you, Christine, about the program, and you can add it at the bottom of the description.
Yes.
It's starting actually next month.
Oh, okay.
The 10 module program.
So in April, do you have an exact date?
Yes, I do. It's beginning of April. It's on the 8th and 9th. On the 8th and 9th of April, I'll have module 1 and module 2. There are 10 modules, so 2 modules a month.
Okay, so, brilliant. 2 modules a month, and then people can join, encouraged to join live, probably. But I think, if I remember correctly, you record them as well, don't you?
Yeah, recording. Yeah, recording is available, but if you're joining live, obviously you can interact and ask questions, and I can also witness your practice. So that's really nice to be able to offer you some suggestion if I see anything. But of course, if those of you who follow my recording in the past, they would email me separately if they have any question. But those 10 modules, I've carefully selected those topics, and those topics are carefully selected to support how to live with and practice scoliosis. So it's not just about a set of poses that I'll be offering, but more so how do we shift and change our our life to include living with scoliosis. So it would include postures and positions. It would also include, yes, there's a module on core strengthening, and then another module on meditation also.
Brilliant. Good. Excellent. Yes, we'll include this obviously in the description. Is there anything else you wanted to share that we haven't maybe? I know it's time always goes so quickly. But is there anything else you wanted to say?
Yeah, I would really encourage you to join the Shine membership so that you have lots of resources, because Christine has spent so much of her energy and time to put together like resources from a guest as well as her own recording. And she's just so generous with what she offers in her membership. So do join that. And for those of you who would like to connect with me, of course, I'm sure my website, Christine will share my website also, which is essentially AdelineCheong.com. No surprise. And you'll also find, if you'd like to work with me on the Yoga for Scoliosis program online, then that's the one that I've been talking about that starts in April. I'm offering it once only this year.
Excellent. Lovely. Yes. So great opportunity, obviously, for anyone who wants to dive in deeper. And Gail is saying, great stuff. You always find the best people to interview. Oh, thank you, Gail. Good. Lovely. Thank you so much, Adeline, for this. I'm sure this gives us a lot to reflect on and think about and meditate on. And yeah, thank you so much for your time today.
Just in case anyone is still waiting for the answer, like which is the best best style of yoga after watching like the whole
after
thing.
Watching 50 minutes of
50 minutes. So I would like to kind of summarize it in like just a couple of sentences.
Let's do that.
Let's do that. Like, so that it's worth watching after all. Yeah, so at the moment, if you feel that you need a little bit more structure and guidance, it of course really depends on the yoga teacher. But I find that Pilates can be really helpful with very specific strengthening work. But I find that what's lacking often when I go to a Pilates class is there's a lot of strengthening work, but there's not enough releasing work, in which case I would probably enjoy like Alexander technique or Feldenkrais technique in terms of finding release, and somatic work, because when I teach my class, the somatic yoga classes, I often have components of all this within it. So there will be release work, and then of course moving into movement, hydration, and hydrating the tissue and organs, then strengthening. So you can have a flavor of that if you'd like to join the somatic yoga classes that I offer online. But those would give you a little bit more structure in terms of practicing, and then take it from there. If you'd like to feel that you have a little bit more space for creativity to be able to continue to evolve your practice, then I would highly recommend going for a somatic approach. So that there is space, and also the pedagogy of the teacher teaching it, there's space for you, and even encourage you to explore and try and feel the difference in your body, rather than just telling you what to do, because eventually the body is going to give up on trusting itself if it's always being told what to do. So eventually I would still consider exploring a more somatic approach, and the pedagogy that is more inquiry based.
Okay, so it's kind of like
that's
how much
summary.
That's the summary. How much structure is needed right now, and
of course also
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and also of course depends if your body is feeling a lot of chronic pain at the moment. Certain practices might not be appropriate. It might not be just about strengthening and hardening the tissue. So I would definitely consider some restorative, more release work, not necessarily stretching even. It's different. Stretching and releasing is different. So more somatic pendiculation and work like this than just going for like core strengthening and all. So it depends on where you are and your intention of coming to the practice at that moment. Yeah, I'm happy to speak about that.
Coming back to that inquiry, obviously that we did. So I think that kind of brings us full circle here. So yes, and it's definitely a topic that is so interesting, you know, and we could talk probably 4 hours about this. But yeah, thank you so much, Adelene. And thank you so much for everyone who's been watching. I think everyone's really appreciated this. And Liz is saying, thank you so much. Very helpful. And yeah, next week, I'm going to do an open Q&A actually. So I'm going to take some questions from the Facebook group. And then the week after, we've got Celeste Pereira on the podcast, who's going to be talking about hypermobility. So that's another very interesting topic and often related to scoliosis. Good. So thank you, Adelene. Stay on for a moment, and I'm just going to end the broadcast here. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Namaste, everyone. Just really want to say an honor to share.